Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private Western Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, it seems that they are now scrambling because Trump made the announcement that he wants to set up a reserve with Bitcoin. And what did they do? Well, they're trying to hide all the coins. Now, is this going to work? No, this is going to be a huge fail. Think about what Trump and the Patriots have done. He has trapped them in all of this, and they are now scrambling. This is how you make your enemy do what you want them to do. And you can see this is exactly what's happening right now. As the internals of the economy breaks down and the deep state, the central bank, the World Economic Forum, as they try to push us into the Great Reset, the Green New Scam, you could see Trump is setting up many different things to trap these individuals. And that's exactly what's happening because you see two sides that are playing out right now. You have one where you have the deep state, the central bankers, they're trying to convince everyone that the economy is doing well. You have the other side where you actually experience the economy falling apart. And the manipulated information that they're feeding everyone is not working. And I do believe Trump, the Patriots, they're going to use this to their advantage, and they're going to use this to push everything away from the private West Central Bank. So right now, the deep state, the central bankers, they realize what Trump is about to do, and they're going to try to stop it. And you know what's going to happen? The people are going to see all of this. The people are going to see all this play out, just like they saw COVID play out, just like they saw the Russia scandal play out, just like they saw impeachment number one and impeachment number two play out, just like they saw the Green New Scam play out. They're going to continually see this happen, and the people, they're going to understand that this is not the direction we need to go in. Because why? The deep state, the central bank, the World Economic Forum, they're going to continue to lie to the people. And when you look at the internals of the economy, you could see the entire economic system is completely and utterly falling apart. Now, they're going to continually manipulate the numbers. They're not going to stop manipulating the numbers because they need to prove to everyone that the economy is doing well. This is why the Fed most likely is going to get their one rate cut, and that's going to happen in September. And yes, they're going to try to make it seem like it's not political, but we all know that it is political. But when you look at the savings rate of the people, it is declining and declining very, very quickly. The Kobisi letter on X put this out and said, Americans can no longer save money. The U.S. personal savings rate declined from 3.5% in May to 3.4% in June, the lowest since December 2022. By comparison, in May 2023, the savings rate was 5.3%. Excluding 2022, the savings rate sits at the lowest level since the 2008 financial crisis. This comes after U.S. households have depleted over $2.3 trillion of excess savings since 2021. At the same time, the credit card debt reached $1.06 trillion in July, just $3 billion below the all-time record. Savings are now considered a luxury. Now, really think about that. People have to use their credit cards. They don't have the savings anymore. The debt in this country is continually moving up. And what's breaking down? Real estate's breaking down. Commercial real estate's breaking down. People are experiencing inflation, higher fuel costs, and it's just getting worse and worse. And when you look at the commercial real estate market, it's just absolutely imploding on itself. The Kobisi letter on X once again. The commercial real estate crisis is spreading. U.S. office vacancies rates in San Francisco reached 25.4% in June, the most among major American metros. This is followed by Houston and Seattle, where office vacancy rates are 23.8% and 23.2%. The lowest vacancy rates are still a whopping 12%, 12.8%, and 13.3% in Miami, Boston, Tampa, respectively. Meanwhile, the nationwide office vacancy rate hit a record 19.8% in the first quarter of 2024, above 2008 and 2020 levels. Vacancy rates are expected to rise to as high as 24% by 2026, according to Moody's. The commercial real estate crisis is a major, major problem. And when you start to put all this together and you start to see the real picture, basically backing out, taking a 40,000-foot view, you can see the internals of the economy. They're completely and utterly falling apart. Now, you compare this to what the Fed is saying, what the Biden administration is saying, you could see that they're completely on opposite ends here, which means we're most likely in a recession and we're heading into a deep recession. And every time you look at the numbers and you look at the indicators, it's actually flashing red over and over and over. And it's showing us that we're heading towards a recession. The Kobeissi letter, recession fears in the U.S. are growing. The SAM rule is an economic indicator suggesting a downturn once the unemployment rate increases 0.5 percentage points above its previous 12-month low. In previous business cycles, every time this indicator crossed above the 0.5% threshold, a recession followed. It now stands at 0.4%, just 0.1 percentage points away from signaling a recession in the U.S. The unemployment rate would need to rise to 4.2% in this week's jobs report to break the threshold. Is the labor market signaling a recession? Yes, and what they're going to do, as we always know, they're going to manipulate the unemployment numbers. They're going to manipulate the inflation numbers. They're going to manipulate the GDP numbers. So as they continually manipulate the numbers, people are going to think that we're not in a recession or heading into a recession. But when you remove the manipulation, what you see is you see the truth. And this is something they don't want you to see. They don't want you to see the true economy. Because again, this is a presidential election year. They want everyone to believe that the economy is doing well. So what they're doing is they're creating this gigantic illusion to make you think everything is perfect, that Bidenomics is working. And in the end, if people fall for this, if people decide, you know something, I believe them, what's going to happen as soon as they cut the rates, I don't mean that day or the next day, a couple weeks later, you're going to see the economy completely fall apart. Now remember, people, yes, they're experiencing the entire economic system completely and utterly falling apart. But what happens is when they start to talk to neighbors, maybe one neighbor says, I don't feel anything. I feel like the economy's doing well. They talk to their brother, sister, cousin, whatever, in another city, and they might say, oh, in our city, it's falling apart. So they're not seeing it on a grand scale across the country. Yes, there are pockets where certain areas they feel at first, especially the blue cities, blue states. And when people talk to other people in other states that are still doing well, they're getting a picture that's a little bit distorted. And we saw this back in 2008, 2009. People up in New York, they were feeling the real estate crash, and they saw the layoffs. And when they spoke to people in Florida, it didn't hit down there yet. So people weren't experiencing the same exact thing. But eventually what happened is that it spread, and it continually spread, and people felt it all. Now, in 2008, 2009, you have to remember, the Fed, the fake news, and everyone else, they were trying to convince everyone that the economy was doing very, very well. Remember, this was during a presidential election. And the only reason the people realized that there was a major, major problem is because the market came down in October. That is the last signal that there's something wrong with the economy. So right now, people are experiencing it. People are saying there's something wrong. But as we get closer and closer to the presidential election and the market falls apart and it takes a dive, maybe 10%, 15%, whatever it's going to be, that's when people really start to wake up. That's when people start to realize we have a major problem on our hand. And this is actually the excuse the companies have to lay off more people, which actually adds to the problem, because once one company does it, many other companies start to do it, and everything starts to fall apart. And this is when people really see the recession. And this is when people realize there's a major, major problem in the economy. And of course, then the fake news and everyone else, they jump on board and they start telling you, yes, we're in a recession. But actually, when you look back in time, the recession actually started a year ago, and they hid this from the people. This is what they always do. But I do believe what's going to happen is Trump and the Patriots, they're going to use this to their advantage. They're going to use this to move us away from the private central bank system. And it looks like Trump, he has made the central bank concentrate on Bitcoin. He made the deep state players concentrate on Bitcoin. Their entire focus is on Bitcoin, which is very, very interesting. So if we're moving back to the Constitution, and we're going to go back, I do believe, to the gold standard. And yes, I do believe the country will have a gold standard. And yes, I do believe we'll use Bitcoin. I wonder if Trump at this point is distracting the deep state players by pushing them towards Bitcoin, having them use everything that they have to stop him from using Bitcoin, while Trump in the background uses the Constitution and gold to prop up the country, which means that we will be on the gold standard, which builds confidence, and we'll have an electronic currency that we'll use, just like we have it today. We have gold, But again, the fiat currency is not connected to gold, but we have a digital version of that fiat currency. But the only difference is that the currency that we're going to use moving forward is not going to be controlled by the private central bank system. It's going to be decentralized, and the people are going to control it, which is going to change the entire fabric of the economy of this country and the world. And we're going to see a very, very big difference, because when the people control their own currency, that means we're no longer borrowing it from the private central bank, which means there's no interest attached, which means we don't have to pay that back, which means we don't really need the IRS. I do believe this is why Trump started out with no tips on taxes. This is why I do believe there's rumors of no federal income tax, and he's already started the narrative of using tariffs. So I do believe we're heading down this path. But think about what just happened with Trump at the Bitcoin convention. And he mentioned that we're going to be using the 210,000 Bitcoin coins that they have as a reserve. All of a sudden, the Biden administration, what did they do? Well, in the last 48 to 72 hours, they decided to move the Bitcoin to a different address. So it looks like they're trying to hide the Bitcoin, and they don't want Trump to get it. Now, do you really think this is going to work? No, in the end, again, this is going to fail, just like everything else that they do completely fails. But again, I do believe Trump let this out, let them know where we're headed, and I do believe he's actually having them concentrate on this while he does other things. And I do believe in the end, with the tariffs, the country will accept Bitcoin and other forms of currency. But I think Bitcoin is most likely going to be the major one, because really think about it. Every other country can use Bitcoin. You don't need the SWIFT system controlled by the central bank. You don't need to have an exchange, because, again, you're using Bitcoin and there is no one entity controlling it, which means you can move it around very, very easily. Plus, countries, they can still hold gold, because gold is a confidence builder. So I do believe we're going to have the best of both worlds, and we're going to see this completely and utterly play out. And I do believe we're heading down a path where Trump, the Patriots, they're planning and getting ready to change the entire economic system. And I do believe our way of life is going to increase like we've never seen before. We're going to see a country that we've never seen before. We're going to be able to rebuild our infrastructure and make the entire country look absolutely incredible. Nothing like what we have today, with the bridges falling apart, the train system, which is very, very old, the cities that are decrepit, and there's homelessness everywhere. I do believe we're going to see a major change like we've never seen before. It's almost like if you go back in time when we had the Renaissance. I do believe people, when they build the new buildings, they're going to be absolutely beautiful. I do believe we're going to see a new age. And when people look back in time, just like people always look back in time in history, people are going to see how the Federal Reserve and how the central banking system actually destroyed the country and the world. And I do believe this is going to be included in the history books. People are going to be talking about this. And as time goes on, people are going to realize that we should never, ever have the private central bank ever in this country and around the world. Now, again, as time goes on, what happens? The private central bank, these evil people, they try to seep right back in, and they try to implement their policies. And they don't do it like just right off the bat. They do it methodically. And they do it in a way that you can't actually tell that they're doing it. But if the people are awake and the people keep talking about it, we can stop this. And if you go back in history, we had periods of time where the private central bank system did not exist for a very long period of time, and the country was absolutely incredible. And yes, the central bank, even though we don't have one, they try to destroy the economy so they can make the excuse of why we need one. But I do believe this time around, people are going to see how the central bank really destroyed this country and the world, because they've been here for a very long time. Since 1913, they came into full power in the 70s. We've had a very long stretch with the private Western Central Bank. It's taken its toll on this country and the world, and I do believe in the end, the people are going to see the difference. Just like the people are seeing the difference between when Trump was in the White House just for 4 years and when Biden was in the White House for 3.5 years. people can definitely see the difference. The people understand what Trump did compared to Biden. And when we look at the Federal Reserve, I think people are going to see a major, major difference. And this is going to actually push us away from the private West central bank system. And in the end, the private West central bank system will cease to exist. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared.